Hey everybody, I'm going to do a short demonstration of a more complex version of the level 70 Black Mage opener. Now this is originally done a video by Lavitz, who's on Gilgamesh. He's a really top tier Black Mage, very good. It's kind of gone around. The previous one I showed off was one I've been using for a while, just because it was really simple and still gave really high DPS, and I still use it in certain fights. Um, but I want to show you this one just so you get an idea of what you're doing. So first, I'll just demonstrate it and try to talk through it, and then I'll explain what's going on. So like most of the rest, you start with Blizzard 3. You're going to do a Nokian, Thunder 3, Blizzard 4. Right here you want to activate your Sharp Cast, Fire 3, Triplecast, throw a fire. Here you would pop between these. So you notice that gives you 4, because of the combination of triple and swift, gives you 4 fire 4s in a row, and then you're activating ley lines right before your fire 1 cast. Now if you're doing this with pots, you would foul almost right away, because the foul will clip into the pot, but otherwise you do the foul at the end to make sure you're maximum mana. And then from here you do the standard rotation, 3 fire 4s, fire 1, 3 more fire 4s, use your procs where you can. If you lose like a thunder proc, don't stress over it too much. Sometimes you just get lucky and get it back. Blizzard 4, Thunder, Foul to make sure we're maximum mana. And from here we're just kind of repeating, but you notice already we do run rotation, and now this is back up. So you get to go 3 fire 4s, swift cast the 4th, just like you did in the opener. Play your fire 1 with a proc off Sharp. And again, you're like just kind of sitting in rotation at this point. And it comes out pretty clean, your mana's usually really good, to where you can immediately Blizzard 4. And now we're in this part where we've got Swift, or ley lines up, and we just keep rotating through this. So I'll finish out this part, and then I'll explain in depth a little more why we're doing this. So pretty straightforward. Nothing really new here, but you'll notice like you always have enough mana if you're a Lalafell. I don't know for certain if that happens on some of the other races. To always have perfect mana for Blizzard 4 immediately after Blizzard 3 cast. So I gotta get myself out of combat. Striking Dummy's so mad at me. Okay. Oh, Thunder is still running on it. There we go. Okay, so let's explain why we do this. So we always start Blizzard 3 because we want to go into our first fire phase at max mana, and then you might as well you then need your Umble Hearts, and finally getting your Thunder up. Typically you want to do Thunder first because of how little mana Blizzard 4 costs. It allows you to ensure that the server timing should tick you to full mana, and then you can go straight into your fire phase. So why we use this opener: it abuses Triplecast. This more regularly uses Triplecast over ley lines, which will give you a bit more. Forgive me, I'm going to go into a dungeon while I explain the rest of this. It gives you a little more flexibility and just raw damage. So you're getting more casts out under your pot if you use your pot correctly. So what you should be doing is fire 3 and you've activated your swift cast or your sharp cast before fire 3. You fire 3, then you immediately activate triple, throw 1 fire 4, pot. Then if you're potting in raids, if you're not potting, don't worry about it. Just skip that part. Do the next 2 fire 4s under triple cast. At some point, activate your swift. You'll notice that during the 3rd, I activate swift and ley lines together just because it's a mental thing for me. But you can time it how you want. Just make sure that the ley lines is already down either in the GCD of the swift casted fire 4 or beforehand, before you start casting the fire 1. It ensures that actually gets off as a cast and not potentially missing it and dropping your Enochian. And actually, I guess being in a dungeon, I can demonstrate the AoE opener too, but the big reason behind that is that it lets you, let's do my AoE wrong while I'm talking. It lets you get the most casts under your potion. And it also ensures that triple cast is up as often as possible in a fight, and as soon as it's up, if you're in your fire phase, you should be using it, which the timing should basically dictate that it's always up during a fire phase. There's some small stuff with like movement depending on each fight and stuff like that, and that's fine. You're gonna have little things. It's good to use it in emergency purposes too. I do it quite a bit on Omega 3S or V3S, depending on what your naming preferences are there. But basically, it's just kind of maximizing some damage. It's going to give you the same nuts and bolts as the other opener I showed, which is that you will be able to cast 6 fire 4s, or I'm sorry, 8 fire 4s, 3/3 then 2. And you should be able to get your foul off under potion if you're using potions, assuming you're using an infusion, which you should be. They're way better. From there, it's a pretty regular rotation. It just makes sure you'll have 1 rotation without, and then you immediately have your swift back up, which is, or your triple in swift, which is pretty stellar, because it basically means every other rotation you'll have these skills available to you, and it just spikes your damage pretty hard. Like, once you get accustomed to it, the opener will feel a little clunky at first just because of how much stuff you're weaving in. It's not quite as like simplistic as the one I showed previously, but its damage is much higher. Alright. So that's basically that one in a nutshell. I just wanted to do kind of a quick video on it and explain that to you guys. And if you have questions, I'm going to put up a post on Lodestone with it. And then also what I will do is link you guys to the action display from Lavitz himself about how to run that rotation. So it actually visually shows you each of the actions in the rotation for the opener, and then the base rotation afterward. But yeah, I mean, it's really high damage. It's really good. So I'd use that. And then I'll show you in a sec here the AoE rotation. So we'll do that. We'll do the rotation one more time here on the boss. It's gonna be a little wonky just because I already have like foul and stuff, but so we would activate Enochian, and even though I have Umbral Hearts, I'm gonna redo it just for sanity's sake. We get a free foul here. I pot right there if I wanted to pot. Yeah, of course, movement screws me. Yeah. That's the core stuff as I screwed up, but that would be what I would do. And there are some fights where I use the other opener that I've shown, as opposed to that one. So just keep that in mind. It's kind of one of those things, once you get used to it, it's really good, but certain fights, it's better to use a different opener and save your triple cast based on movement requirements. I haven't made it to V4S quite yet, so I don't know if it's still the best opener in V4. I would assume so, but we'll see.